I'm here to see my wife. Her name is Olivia Cole.
Are you joking? Her husband's name is Daniel Brooks, and he just went up to her office.
I walked up to the front desk and said, "I'm here to see my wife. Her name is Olivia Cole." The receptionist frowned at me, then let out a small laugh. "Are you joking?" she said. "Her husband's name is Daniel Brooks, and he just went up to her office." I didn't respond. I couldn't, because right at that moment, the elevator doors opened behind me, and the man she just called my wife's husband walked out like he owned her world. In that second, my 26-year marriage didn't break. It turned into something I was never meant to see. So I didn't make a scene. I didn't say a word. I went home and started uncovering the life she had been hiding from me. My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 48 years old, and for most of my life, I believed I understood exactly who I was. A steady man, grounded, reliable. The kind of person who builds a life brick by brick and never looks back. I'm about 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, but starting to soften with age. My dark brown hair now threaded with quiet strands of gray. I've always been the calm one in any room, the one who listens more than he speaks. Maybe that's why I never saw it coming. That afternoon, I stood outside the glass tower of Aurora Systems, holding a small paper bag in one hand and a thin envelope in the other. Inside the envelope were 2 tickets to a Broadway show, Hamilton. Olivia had mentioned months ago how much she wanted to see it again. 26 years of marriage. I thought it deserved something special. Olivia Cole, my wife, 47, sharp, brilliant, and impossibly driven. She had the kind of presence that could command a room without raising her voice. Tall, elegant, always dressed in tailored suits that looked like they belonged in magazines. People admired her. I admired her. I built my life around her success without ever calling it a sacrifice. I pushed through the revolving doors and stepped into the lobby. Marble floors, polished steel, the kind of place where everything reflected success, including her. At the front desk sat a young receptionist, maybe mid-20s. Blonde hair pulled into a tight ponytail, neat makeup, posture straight but slightly tense, like someone still trying to prove she belonged. Her name tag read Chloe. Her eyes flicked up when I approached. "I'm here to see my wife," I said, offering a polite smile. "Her name is Olivia Cole." Chloe blinked, just once. Then her lips parted slightly like she wasn't sure she heard me correctly. A faint crease formed between her brows. "I'm sorry, what?" she asked. "My wife," I repeated, still calm. "Olivia Cole. I wanted to surprise her." There was a pause, a strange one, not confusion, something else. Then she let out a small, awkward laugh. "Are you joking?" she said, lowering her voice slightly. "Her husband's name is Daniel Brooks, and he just went up to her office." The words didn't hit me all at once. They landed slowly, like snow, soft, silent, until everything was covered. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Behind me, the soft ding of the elevator doors echoed across the lobby. I turned, and that's when I saw him. Daniel Brooks, early 40s, around 6'2", lean, sharp build like someone who took care of himself with discipline rather than vanity. Dark blonde hair, neatly styled, clean-shaven. He wore a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, too perfectly to be accidental. His posture was confident, relaxed, the kind of man who knew exactly where he stood in the world. There was something else about him, too, a kind of quiet authority. The way he nodded at employees as he walked past, how they smiled back, not forced but familiar. He belonged here. More than that, he looked like someone who had fought his way up. The type who had learned early how to read people, how to win rooms. You could see it in his eyes, calm, calculating, but not cold. He didn't see me. To him, I didn't exist. "Daniel," Chloe called softly. "She's expecting you upstairs." He gave a brief nod and stepped toward the elevator again. My fingers tightened slightly around the paper bag. The takeout inside had already gone cold. "Sir?" Chloe said, her voice suddenly uncertain. "Are you okay?" I forced a small laugh. "You know what?" I said, stepping back. "I think I got the wrong building. I was looking for another company. My mistake." She looked at me, really looked this time. And in her eyes, there it was. Not confusion, not doubt. pity. "Of course," she said quietly. I set the bag down on the counter. "Could you give that to Olivia?" I added. "Just tell her." Ethan dropped it off. Her lips pressed together slightly, but she nodded. "Sure." I didn't wait any longer, because if I stayed 1 second more, I wasn't sure I'd still be the man I thought I was. So I walked out. And just like that, the door that was supposed to lead to my wife became the one that shut me out of her life. I sat in my car across the street from Aurora Systems long after I walked out of that building, the engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel like I had forgotten what they were meant to do. The city moved around me, people crossing streets, taxis honking, glass doors opening and closing, but inside the car, everything was still. My mind didn't replay what I had just seen. It went somewhere else, backwards, to the version of my life that made sense. I had always been the steady one, not flashy, not ambitious in the way people admired, but dependable. While Olivia built empires, I built foundations. I paid the bills, managed the accounts, made sure nothing collapsed underneath her. That had been my role for 26 years, and I had worn it like armor. Olivia had always been different. Even at 23, when I first met her at a university networking event, she carried herself like someone who already knew where she was going. She was tall, composed, with sharp green eyes that seemed to calculate outcomes before conversations even ended. Ambition wasn't just part of her, it defined her. She didn't just want success, she needed it, and I admired that. Back then, it felt like balance. She reached higher. I kept us grounded. I thought that was what love looked like. Two people filling in each other's gaps. I never imagined one day I'd realize I had been filling in cracks she never intended to repair. About 10 years into our marriage, I was offered a partnership track at Monroe & Associates. It was the kind of opportunity most accountants spend their entire careers chasing. Long hours, high pressure, but it came with prestige, influence, and a future that could have been mine. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with the offer letter in front of me, while Olivia paced nearby, rehearsing a pitch for a board presentation that could change her career. She didn't ask me to turn it down, she didn't have to. I saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the way she relied on the stability I created without ever saying it out loud. So I declined the offer. Told myself it was the right choice. Told myself we were a team. That her success was our success. Rachel never believed that. My younger sister, Rachel Cole, 42, a sharp-tongued journalist with shoulder-length auburn hair and a habit of seeing through people faster than they'd like, had always been skeptical of Olivia. Rachel had built her career exposing corporate misconduct, which meant she trusted patterns more than people. "She's too perfect," she once told me over dinner. "People like that don't just exist without a cost." I had laughed it off at the time. Rachel had been through a messy divorce years ago, and I chalked her distrust up to experience. But sitting in that car now, her voice didn't sound cynical anymore. It sounded accurate. We never had kids. That decision had been Olivia's. She framed it logically. Children would disrupt her trajectory, slow her momentum, introduce variables she couldn't control. I had wanted them, at least in the beginning. I imagined a house that felt fuller, something beyond schedules and quarterly reports. But over time, I convinced myself it didn't matter, that we were enough, that her career was something we were building together. Looking back now, I realized something uncomfortable. There had never been a we in that decision. There had only been her direction, and my willingness to follow. The signs had always been there. Late nights that turned into overnight trips, business dinners that felt too frequent to question, subtle changes, new perfume she said was for client impressions, weekends that disappeared into strategy retreats. None of it had seemed wrong on its own. That was the brilliance of it. Each piece was small enough to ignore. But now, sitting there, replaying years in reverse, I could see the pattern forming like a picture I had refused to step back and look at. And the worst part wasn't what I had just discovered. It was realizing how long I had been choosing not to see it. By the time I got home, the sun had already dipped below the skyline, leaving the house in that quiet, dim glow that used to feel comforting. That night it felt staged, like a set waiting for actors to walk into their roles. I moved through the kitchen automatically, reheating dinner, setting the table for two, placing the Broadway tickets back into the envelope and sliding it into a drawer. My hands worked out of habit, but my mind was somewhere else entirely, still standing in that lobby, still hearing those words echo in my head. I told myself to stay calm, to watch, to listen. If there was a truth, I would find it. Not by breaking, but by paying attention. Olivia walked in at exactly 8:17 p.m. She always kept time like that, precise, controlled, intentional. She looked exactly as she always did after work, composed, elegant, untouchable. Her long dark hair was tied back neatly, a few loose strands framing her face in a way that looked effortless but never accidental. Her posture was straight, her expression calm, her presence filling the room the moment she stepped in. "Hey," she said, setting her bag down and slipping off her heels. Her voice was warm, familiar, practiced. "You're home early." I nodded, watching her carefully. "Thought I'd make dinner," I said. She smiled, soft, perfect, exactly the smile I'd fallen in love with. But something about it felt distant, like it didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. My phone buzzed on the counter, a message from Rachel. "Be careful with Olivia. Something about her has never sat right with me." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. For the first time, I wasn't dismissing her words. I was listening. Olivia moved around the kitchen like nothing had changed, opening the fridge, pouring herself a glass of water, asking me about my day. Small talk. Normal. Painfully normal. And that was the problem, because I knew something she didn't know I knew. And she was acting like the world was exactly the same. "I stopped by your office today," I said casually, keeping my tone light as I leaned against the counter. Just a sentence, just a test. She paused. Barely. A fraction of a second, but I saw it. Then she turned back, completely composed. "Oh, really?" she said. "You should have told me. I had meetings all afternoon." Perfect delivery. No hesitation, no cracks. If I hadn't seen what I saw earlier, I would have believed her. "I met Daniel Brooks," I added, watching her closely. There it was again, that microscopic shift. Her fingers tightened slightly around the glass before relaxing. She turned, leaning casually against the counter now, mirroring my posture. "Daniel?" she said with a small, dismissive smile. "He's one of my senior executives. Why?" Her eyes held mine steadily, confident, controlled, and completely false. "No reason," I said. "Just seemed like you two worked closely." She nodded. "We do. He's good at what he does." That was it. That was all she gave me. No over-explaining, no defensiveness. Just enough truth wrapped around a lie to make it believable. Her phone rang a few minutes later. She glanced at the screen, and for the first time that night something real flickered across her face. Something she didn't have time to hide. Not fear, not guilt. Recognition. She turned away slightly as she answered. "I'll take this," she said, already walking toward the hallway. Her voice dropped as she spoke, low and controlled, just out of reach. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. I stood there, listening to the silence she left behind, realizing something I couldn't ignore anymore. She didn't look at me the way she used to. Not once that entire night. I waited until Olivia fell asleep. She always did it the same way, quickly, completely, like someone who had trained her body to shut down on command. Years of pressure had turned rest into efficiency. By midnight, her breathing was steady, her face calm, almost innocent. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her, trying to reconcile the woman lying there with the one I had seen reflected in everything else. Then I turned and walked toward her study. Her laptop sat on the desk, closed but not locked. It never was. Trust had always been the foundation of our marriage, or at least I had believed it was. My hands hesitated for a second before opening it, not out of guilt, but out of the realization that once I started, there would be no going back. The screen lit up and I went straight to her calendar. At first glance, everything looked normal. Meetings, investor calls, strategy sessions. But then I started noticing patterns. Dinner, D. 7:30 p.m. No location listed. Weekend retreat, D. Conference block. Repeating entries, spaced just enough apart to avoid suspicion. My chest tightened. D. I didn't need to guess anymore. I opened her email next. Hundreds of messages, neatly organized, filtered, controlled. Just like her. Too controlled. That's when I noticed gaps. Threads that ended abruptly. Dates that didn't align with her calendar entries. Something was missing. I leaned back, exhaling slowly, then reached for my phone. There was one person I trusted for something like this. Mark Reynolds. 39. Lean, slightly hunched posture from years behind screens, messy dark hair he never bothered to style, and eyes that always seemed half a step ahead of whatever problem you gave him. We'd been friends since college. While I chose stability, Mark chased complexity. He built a career in cybersecurity, specializing in data recovery and digital forensics, the kind of work that required patience and a willingness to dig where others stopped. He picked up on the second ring. "Ethan? It's late. Everything okay?" His voice was calm but alert, like someone used to emergencies hiding behind casual calls. "I need your help," I said. No explanation, just that. There was a brief pause, then, "Send me what you've got." No questions. That was Mark. Within 20 minutes, I had forwarded him access logs and backup data from Olivia's synced accounts. He worked fast. Too fast. "She's been deleting emails," he said after a few minutes. "But not cleanly. There are fragments left in the backup cache." My grip tightened around the phone. "Can you recover them?" Another pause. Keys clicking in the background. "Yeah, give me a second." That second felt like an hour. While I waited, my phone buzzed again. "Rachel." I answered this time. "Tell me you're not ignoring what's right in front of you," she said immediately. Her voice carried that same sharp edge, but beneath it, there was something else. Concern. Real concern. I leaned against the desk, staring at Olivia's calendar still open on the screen. "I'm not ignoring it anymore," I said quietly. Silence on the other end. Then softer. "Good. Because I've started looking into her company connections. Something doesn't feel right." That was Rachel. Once she sensed a crack, she didn't stop until she found the fault line. "Ethan," Mark's voice cut back in. "I got something." I switched back to him. "Recovered emails between her and someone saved as D. Not just work. This isn't professional." He paused, like he was choosing his words carefully. "They're meeting outside office hours, private dinners, trips. This has been going on for a while." I closed my eyes for a second, letting the weight of it settle. Not suspicion anymore, not doubt. Certainty. When I hung up, the room felt smaller, quieter, like the walls were closing in around a truth that had been there all along, waiting for me to finally see it. And now that I had, I couldn't unsee it. I didn't plan to find it that morning. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for anymore, just something real. Something that would either prove I was wrong or confirm what I already knew. Olivia had left early as always, 7:15 sharp. A quick kiss on my forehead, light, routine, almost automatic. I waited until the sound of her car faded, then walked straight into her study. No hesitation this time, no second thoughts. I started with the drawers. Not the obvious ones, the ones anyone would check, but the back corners, the places people assume are too insignificant to matter. That's where I found it. A small silver key tucked beneath a tangled chain of jewelry she never wore. It wasn't labeled, but it didn't need to be. Something about the way it was hidden told me it mattered. Attached to it was a plain black tag with an address etched into it. Harbor View Apartments, Unit 214. The drive there felt unreal, like I was moving through someone else's life, watching it unfold from a distance. Harbor View stood exactly where I remembered. Tall, modern, expensive. The kind of building that didn't ask questions as long as you could afford the answers. I parked across the street and just sat there for a minute, staring up at the windows. One of them was hers. Not ours. Hers. The lobby smelled faintly of polished wood and something floral. Clean, controlled. A mirror image of Olivia's world. I kept my head down as I walked to the elevator, pressing the button for the second floor. My reflection in the metal doors looked unfamiliar, tired, older than I remembered. When the doors opened, I stepped into a quiet hallway lined with identical doors, each one hiding a version of someone's life. Unit 214. The key fit. That was the moment everything inside me went still. The door opened slowly, without resistance, like it had been waiting for me. Inside, the air was warm, lived in. Not temporary, not staged. Real. The living room was carefully arranged, modern furniture, soft lighting, fresh flowers sitting in the center of a glass table. I recognized them immediately. White lilies, Olivia's favorite. There were photos on the shelf. I didn't want to look, but I did. Olivia and Daniel, at a beach, at a restaurant, laughing, close, comfortable. In every single photo, she wasn't wearing her wedding ring. I swallowed hard and moved further inside. The kitchen had 2 coffee mugs on the counter, both used, his and hers without ever saying it out loud. The bedroom door was slightly open. I pushed it wider. Clothes hung in the closet, her dresses beside his suits, shoes lined up together like they belonged to the same life. The bed was made, but not in the way hotels do. This was lived-in neatness, familiar, intimate. I stood there longer than I should have, letting it sink in. This wasn't an affair. This was a second life. "Can I help you?" The voice came from behind me. I turned sharply. A woman stood in the hallway, watching me with cautious curiosity. Mrs. Carter, late 60s, short and slightly rounded, silver-gray hair styled in soft curls. She wore a knitted cardigan over a floral dress, the kind of person who paid attention to everything in her building without ever seeming intrusive. Her eyes were kind, but observant. "I'm sorry," I said quickly. "Oh," she interrupted gently, her expression shifting as she looked past me into the apartment. "You must be Daniel's brother or something. They didn't mention anyone visiting." The words hit differently this time. "They?" I asked. She nodded, stepping a little closer, lowering her voice like she was sharing something personal. "Daniel and his wife. Lovely couple, always polite. Been here almost 2 years now, I think." She smiled faintly. "Quiet, but you can tell they care about each other." I didn't correct her. I couldn't. Instead, I just nodded slowly, feeling something inside me shift. Something deeper than anger, heavier than betrayal. Because in that moment, it wasn't just about what Olivia had done to me. It was about the life she had built, where I didn't exist at all. And the realization came quietly, but completely. I wasn't the only one who had been living a lie. I didn't go home right away after leaving the apartment. I sat in my car again, but this time it wasn't shock holding me still. It was clarity. What I had seen wasn't just betrayal. It was structure, planning, investment. You don't build a second life like that by accident. And if Olivia had built it, she had funded it. That thought was what finally pushed me forward. I went home, opened my laptop, and logged into our joint accounts. Numbers had always been my language, and numbers, unlike people, didn't lie. At first glance, everything looked clean. Deposits came in regularly, my salary, hers, consistent, predictable. Expenses matched what I expected: mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries. But then I looked deeper, patterns within patterns, transfers that didn't align with our known expenses. Small at first, almost unnoticeable, then larger, regular, intentional. My chest tightened as I started documenting everything. Over 3 years, the missing amount wasn't small, it was staggering. Hundreds of thousands, not gone, redirected. I called Mark again. He picked up immediately this time. "You found something," he said, more statement than question. "Yeah," I replied, already sending him the files. "I need you to verify it." There was a pause, then the familiar sound of keys clicking rapidly. Mark had always looked like someone who lived inside systems rather than outside them. Thin frame, pale skin from too many nights indoors, glasses slightly crooked like he never noticed when they slipped. But his mind was sharp, precise. He didn't miss things. "Give me 10 minutes, he said. While I waited, I kept digging. Credit cards, secondary accounts, corporate reimbursements. That's when it clicked. She hadn't just been taking money. She had been moving it, layering it through accounts that made it look legitimate. Rent payments to Harborview, furniture purchases, travel expenses masked as business trips. It was all there, hidden in plain sight. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, feeling something shift again. This wasn't emotional anymore. It was factual. "Ethan," Mark's voice came through. "You're right. She's been using joint funds to support that apartment. But that's not the worst part." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He exhaled slowly. "Some of these transactions tie back to company accounts, expense reports, budget reallocations. It's subtle, but it's there. She's been moving company resources, too." I closed my eyes briefly. That was the moment it crossed a line I couldn't ignore. This wasn't just personal betrayal. It was professional misconduct. My phone buzzed again. "Rachel." I answered without hesitation. "I was about to call you," she said, her voice sharper than usual. "I found something." I didn't interrupt. Rachel rarely spoke unless she was certain. "Olivia consulted with a divorce attorney over a year ago. Actually, 3 different attorneys. She's been planning this for a while." There was a pause. "Ethan, she's been building a case." The words settled heavily. Not just leaving me, replacing me, strategically. I stood up slowly, pacing the room, trying to keep everything aligned in my head. Affair, financial deception, corporate manipulation, legal preparation. It wasn't chaos, it was design. And for the first time since this started, I felt something unexpected. Not anger, not grief. Focus. "I'm not going to explode this," I said quietly. Rachel went silent. "What?" "I'm not going to confront her. Not yet." I looked back at the screen, at the files, the evidence stacking itself into something undeniable. If I do this, I do it right. Mark stayed quiet on the line, but I could feel him listening, calculating. Rachel exhaled slowly. "Then what are you going to do?" I didn't answer immediately, because for the first time, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was planning. And whatever came next, it wouldn't be about revenge. It would be about the truth. I didn't sleep the night before I met the board. Not because I was nervous, but because everything had finally aligned. Every piece of evidence, every file, every transaction, every email Mark recovered. It all told the same story. And for the first time, I wasn't questioning it. I wasn't doubting myself. I wasn't waiting for Olivia to explain it away. I was done waiting. The next morning, I sat in a quiet conference room on the 18th floor of Aurora Systems, a space I had only seen once before during a company event years ago. This time, I wasn't there as a supportive husband. I was there with something far more dangerous: truth. Richard Hale, the chairman of the board, arrived first. Mid-60s, tall, silver-haired, with the kind of sharp eyes that had spent decades evaluating risk and reading people. He wasn't a man easily surprised, but when I handed him the folder, something in his expression shifted. "You understand what you're presenting here, Mr. Cole?" he asked, his voice measured. "Yes," I replied, "I do." He nodded once, then signaled for the rest of the board to begin assembling. I didn't stay for the full meeting. I didn't need to. I had done my part. By the time I stepped out of the building, my phone was already vibrating. "Rachel." "It's happening," she said the moment I answered. Her voice was tight, not with fear, but intensity. "They've called an emergency session. Word is already spreading inside." I exhaled slowly, leaning against the cold metal railing outside the building. "Good," I said quietly. Not because I wanted chaos, but because I wanted it to stop being hidden. 2 hours later, Mark called. "Daniel Brooks has been escorted out," he said, straight to the point like always. "Security, no warning. His access has been revoked." I closed my eyes briefly. Not satisfaction, not relief, just confirmation. "And Olivia?" I asked. There was a pause. "Under investigation, internal and external. They're bringing in auditors." That was it. No drama, just consequences. I got home just before sunset. Rachel was already there, standing in the kitchen like she belonged, not intruding, not cautious, present. She looked at me the moment I walked in, her expression softer than I had ever seen it. "You did the right thing," she said. I didn't respond. Not because I disagreed, but because I didn't feel anything close to right. Just necessary. The front door opened an hour later. Olivia. She didn't look like herself. Not the version the world saw. Her hair was slightly out of place, her posture no longer perfectly controlled. For the first time in years, she looked uncertain. Her eyes locked onto mine immediately. "What did you do?" she asked, her voice barely holding together. Rachel stepped forward slightly, not aggressive, just there. A presence. A reminder that I wasn't alone anymore. "I told the truth," I said. Olivia shook her head quickly, stepping closer. "You went to the board? Ethan, do you understand what you've done?" Her voice cracked on the last word. I held her gaze. "Do you?" That stopped her, completely. For a second, everything she had built, the control, the confidence, the certainty, fell away. She sat down slowly, like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. "We can fix this," she said, her voice softer now, almost pleading. "Whatever you think you saw, whatever you think this is, we can fix it. I'll end things. I'll do whatever it takes." She looked up at me then, and for the first time there were real tears in her eyes. Not calculated, not controlled. And that's when it hit me. I felt nothing. No anger, no heartbreak, no desire to fight for what we had. Just emptiness. A quiet, undeniable clarity. "I don't want to fix this," I said. She froze. "Ethan, I don't love you anymore." The words came out calmly, not cruel, not loud, just true. And somehow that made them heavier. Rachel moved closer beside me, her presence steady, grounding. Olivia looked between us, realizing something she hadn't planned for. She had lost control. And for the first time in all of this, I wasn't standing there alone. The divorce was finalized on a quiet Tuesday morning, the kind of day that didn't feel significant enough to carry the weight of ending 26 years of marriage. There were no dramatic scenes, no last-minute confessions, no attempts to stop it. Just signatures, documents, and a silence that stretched longer than anything we had ever shared together. Olivia sat across from me in the attorney's office, composed as always, but thinner, paler, like something inside her had been quietly stripped away. Her career had collapsed within weeks of the investigation. The board had forced her resignation, and the industry she once dominated now kept its distance. Daniel didn't stay either. From what I heard, he walked away once everything fell apart. Whatever they had built together hadn't survived reality. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. I sold the house 2 months later. It had become something I couldn't live in anymore. Not because of what it was, but because of what it represented. Every room held a version of a life that no longer existed. I moved into a smaller condo across the city, somewhere quieter, simpler. It wasn't impressive. It wasn't meant to be. For the first time, it was mine, completely mine. No shared plans, no hidden truths, just space I could finally understand. Work changed too. I left Monroe and Associates shortly after the divorce. Stability had defined me for too long, and I realized something unexpected. I didn't want to go back to the same life I had built around someone else's ambitions. Instead, I started my own financial consulting firm. Small at first. Just me, a laptop, and a handful of clients who trusted my reputation more than my title. It grew slowly, but it grew honestly. For the first time, every decision I made belonged to me. Every success felt earned in a way I had never experienced before. It was Rachel who pushed me to reconnect with the rest of the world. "You don't rebuild by staying inside your own head," she told me one afternoon, leaning against the doorway of my new office. She looked lighter now, less guarded, like seeing me stand on my own had shifted something in her too. And she was right. That's how I found my way back to Emma. Emma Lawson, 45, soft brown hair that fell just past her shoulders, usually tucked behind one ear when she focused on something. She had a quiet kind of presence, not loud, not commanding, but steady. The kind that made you feel at ease without trying. She owned a small independent bookstore near the lake, a place filled with warm light, worn wooden shelves, and the faint scent of paper and coffee. I had met her years ago, long before everything changed. Back then, timing had never lined up. Life had been different. When I walked into her store again, she looked up from behind the counter and smiled like no time had passed at all. Not surprised, not questioning, just open. We started with small conversations, coffee, books, long walks along the water where silence didn't feel heavy. It felt comfortable. She didn't ask me to explain everything right away, and I didn't rush to fill the space. For once, something unfolded naturally. I started noticing the changes in myself slowly. The way I made decisions without checking how they would affect someone else. The way I filled my time with things I actually chose. The way mornings felt lighter. Not because everything was perfect, but because everything was honest. One evening I sat by the window in my condo, watching the city settle into night. My phone buzzed softly. A message from Emma. Dinner tomorrow? I found a place I think you'll love. I smiled before I even realized it. For years, I thought happiness meant stability. That if everything stayed in place, if nothing broke, if nothing changed, that was enough. I was wrong. Because sometimes, everything has to fall apart before you finally get the chance to build something real, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just existing, I was living. So, if you were in my place, what would you choose? Confront immediately, or stay silent and uncover the truth. Forgive the betrayal, or walk away and choose yourself. Because sometimes, the real question isn't love, it's self-respect. Comment your choice below. I want to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful stories like this.